We all say I, but do we know who the I actually is? Who is the I beneath your roles, thoughts, and changing emotions? In this episode, we explore the eternal conscious self as described in Vedanta and how experiencing this truth firsthand can change everything. Vedanta says you aren't your body or your mind. That strips down things quite a bit, doesn't it? I see and feel my body, and my mind is constantly active. It sure feels like me. Descartes famously asserted, I think, therefore I am. This is another way of saying, I exist. To this, Vedanta agrees. We exist. We know this because we have the experience of existing. Existence is impossible to deny, therefore we cannot deny the self. Descartes affirmed that one thing that we can know for sure is that we are, at the very least, an awareness experiencing thoughts or mental objects. But what are these thoughts? Are we the mind? Bhakti invites us to probe further into the nature of our existence with the question, who is the I who thinks? Who is the you who exists? Are you that body that will die? Are you the mind with its constantly changing thoughts and emotions? Or are you what is aware of your thoughts and emotions, aware of the body? Are they you or do they belong to you? If they belong to you, then does it make sense to say that they are you? Some people have encountered or intuited the I beyond their psychophysical self and begin to inquire. What is the nature of the self? What is the value and meaning of the self? What is the need of the self? What are the characteristics of the self? And what is the highest expression of the self? Through these persistent, universal questions, our big I is begging for our attention. We're more than what we see in the mirror. I had a stark experience of this as a teenager. One very ordinary morning, as I was getting ready for school, I was brushing my hair while looking in the mirror. Suddenly, though nothing external had changed, the person I saw in the mirror wasn't me. It was the same face that was there before, but now it was the face of a distant stranger. Who was that person in the mirror, I thought. I puzzled and looked, disbelieving and disoriented. This is not me, I thought. The world became small and large simultaneously, focused yet expansive. What was I perceiving? Who was questioning the experience? Who was experiencing? At that time, I saw someone. Moments like this one I experienced, which are sometimes called spiritual glimpses or numinous experiences, are described by mystics across cultures. Bhakti helps us stabilize and deepen them into a full understanding of the self and eventually into a constant state of immediate awareness. During my experience, this subtle, esoteric self was unbounded by the room, the house, and other localities. And surprisingly, this normally unseen reality was more real than anything I had experienced. In a dizzying flash, I understood I existed before I was in this body, and that person I perceived was the real me. I wasn't the body that I regularly saw in the mirror, and I wanted to know more about that person that I knew existed. After a minute or two, regular perceptions came back, and I carried on with my day. But the moment opened me to another layer of reality with the question, who is experiencing? I was wrestling with the difference between me, the experiencer, and the body I experienced. I glimpsed two distinct categories of existence: the self, who is conscious, and the mind body it's aware of. In that moment, I realized that there were two distinct features of me. I had thought of myself as a young girl born in San Francisco. I was the daughter of my parents and a sister of my siblings. I was going to Redwood High School in Larkspur and loved the giant redwoods in the Madrone Canyon. This was me. But in that flash, I understood I was more than that identity. That identity seemed to be very unreal. The real me, the big I, was the person who was having thoughts about identity. We can think of our temporary bodily identity as the small me and the permanent identity as the big I. That which exists is conscious of its existence and is real, permanent, and eternal. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that each individual atma, or true self, existed in the past, exists now, and will exist in the future. In short, the self is eternal, we are immortal. When we know this beyond theory, we become completely fearless and can finally become truly happy. Until then, there's no question of lasting happiness within our self-concept and our ensuing work and relationships when they are based on a wrong foundation. Krishna says the atma is utterly amazing, luminous, and wondrous because it is a unit of spirit, a unit of consciousness. So let's pause for a moment to take note that for Vedanta, consciousness is spirit, spirit is consciousness. It's a different ontological category from something called prakriti, which refers to the mind, body, and the world. Prakriti is ever-changing. It is the world of impermanence. Spirit is unchangeable and eternal. The mind, body, and world are said, in a sense, not to possess real being because they are always changing and one day will disappear. Krishna says that which possesses real being never ceases to exist. He goes on to say, the living entities in the conditioned world are part and parcel of Him. Our true identity is as spirit souls beyond the mind and body. Those spirit souls are eternally part of Krishna, or in other words, eternal emanations of our divine beloved. Due to conditioned life, we're struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. In that verse, Krishna clearly distinguishes the true self from the mind, which the self wrestles with. In fact, we are small sparks of a great fire, units of a whole. The atma, or the true eternal self, exists in all phases of time, past, present, and future. So when I say our true self, I don't mean a healthy psychological self. I'm referring to the self, a unit of spirit consciousness, who has an identity different from the mind-body. Why is this self blissful? Thakur Bhaktivinoda, a scholar saint of the 19th century, explains through a logical exercise that the primary characteristic of the self is bliss. The Thakur has written, if one thinks intelligently, the distinguishing quality of the soul must be the ability to experience bliss. If all the souls are taken from the world becomes devoid of happiness. Never under any condition do water, fire, air, space, and earth possess bliss. Thus, the soul is the abode of bliss in the material world. When the spiritual body of the soul, by material association, is covered by the mundane, subtle, and gross bodies, which are the mind and physical body, the quality of bliss is transformed by the subtle and gross mundane states and ends up as distress. The natural blissful condition of the self is therefore transformed into material happiness and distress when we identify ourself with the mind-body. We can reverse this equation so that we can stop identifying with the self and become happy. A bit later, the Thakur continued, when the distress we experience becomes somewhat reduced, we have a little transitory happiness. Thus, happiness and distress are actually transformations of the state of bliss. Let's do another logical exercise to explore the Atma's other qualities and uncover our nature. Since I'm consciousness, then by extension, my experience is the experience of consciousness. Therefore, if I examine my experiences, I can learn something about consciousness. What is our universal experience? We experience ourselves as individuals. You and I are not the same person. We're distinct individuals with distinct experiences. We have unique self-identity. Therefore, the self is eternally an individual. And as sparks of consciousness, the atma is self-luminous and it illuminates other things. Luminosity or light brings the capacity to know. It can make itself known and it can know those things which are outside itself. Maybe an analogy will help. The light bulb itself is luminous and it spreads light, making other things also illuminated. Therefore, the self can know itself and can know other things. Spirit or consciousness is knowing. So here we have now identified two characteristics of the self. We are eternal individuals and we have an inherent capacity for knowledge. There's a third characteristic we have experience of also. We are a feeling self. As individuals, we have will, desires, emotions, and an ability to act. We reason, enjoy, learn, and bring meaning to our environment and relationships. We have more than a rational knowing life. We have an emotional life. And Bhakti philosophy tells us that the most exalted emotional state is love in its purest form. To be clear though, material emotions are only reflections of the spiritual emotions of our true identities as spirit souls, in which our inherent nature, once uncovered, is service and love. Material emotions are always changing. Our moods roam and shift over minutes and months and years. This is a characteristic of matter. We see that everything changes, whether it's an emotion, a possession, a relationship, or a thought. Spiritual emotions, on the other hand, endure and expand, surging as they do from the timeless spirit itself. And once uncovered by awakening the self, pure emotional states exist eternally. These spiritual emotions give life a transcendental meaning. And when we arrive at meaning that endures, we've located our home. Another way of saying this is that when we know ourself, we arrive home. Through our experience and knowledge of Vedanta, we can thus confirm that self or consciousness is the combined miracle of being, knowing, and loving. We experience that we exist, that we are cognizant, and that we love. We do far more than just know, as Descartes told us, and we do more than just exist. We exist, we know, we love, and have joy. Now, I'd like to point out that there's something special about the order of these characteristics of consciousness. In Vedanta, when there's a list, emphasis is generally placed on the last item. Love is always emphasized because of the qualities of the atma. It is the most inclusive and important. To understand the metaphysical completeness of the self, when it achieves ananda or love or bhakti's blissful divine love, then let's take a minute to examine the following. One who exists doesn't necessarily know or love, but one who knows certainly exists, though he or she may not love. However, if one loves, then one both exists and knows. Therefore, a loving existence is the most whole existential state of the self and brings unlimited joy, the unmatched joy of the self. Each of us at our core speaks and sings the language of love, and love, pure love, is the ultimate need of the self. In this way, our search for happiness is factually our search for the self and divine love, because we are lovers. And we're not just ordinary lovers, We are extraordinary lovers that can only be satisfied with extraordinary divine love. Bhakti asserts that we're a love-driven reality generated from a love-imbued reality, our divine source, who loves and cherishes love. Until we fulfill this most basic necessity of the self for true love, we can never be fulfilled, satisfied, or happy. In short, we're fervent seekers of love because the self is driven by love, because we come from a loving being whose love is the source of the inherent love and need for love in our true selves. And we want divine love, bhakti or transcendental, enduring, pure love, not mundane love that sends us soaring and then leaves us in a depression or obsessive or in a dependency. So this explains why our pursuits for sensual gratification, our desire to acquire wealth, fame, beauty, possession, or material things are bankrupt chases that can only frustrate and aggravate us. As consciousness is indestructible and unchanging, so too are its qualities. We exist, we know, we love, even after the demise of our body. And our insatiable desire for pure love always remains our greatest need. Now, I've only briefly considered the atma in this episode. If you'd like to learn more about the atma, or the finite unit of consciousness according to Vedanta, I recommend the Atma Paradigm. And my friend Akandadi leads a fascinating exploration of the Atma and all aspects of consciousness and how our bodies and mind are wired and more. So I'll include a link for that series here for you. Thanks for spending this time exploring Bhakti with me. To give the gift of knowledge forward, please like and share and subscribe so you can continue to journey into the mystical yet practical world of Bhakti. I'll leave you again with a little question. If you're not your body, your thoughts, or your emotions, then who are you really? Let me know your thoughts and questions or share your reflections below. I'll be answering you there. And in the next episode, we're going to examine the nature of the mind and its divisions, mind, intelligence, and ego, which is quite an interesting topic. Until next time, try to see yourself differently and observe what you experience. Swastiastu Vishvasya, may there be good fortune throughout the universe and for you.